Oh, time to get up. Gotta go meet the sun. Oh, yeah. Surrounded by the presence, surrounded by a friend. The source of all creation allows me to begin. The source of all creation allows me to begin again. Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
Peace and blessings. This is Michael Bernard Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center and the author of Spiritual Liberation, Fulfilling Your Soul's Potential. Welcome to the Sound of Transformation, where what we are about is waking up to the deep potential that's within every being on this planet so that we can become a strong and beneficial presence on the planet at this time in human history. In other words, we're not here just to become enlightened. We're here to become enlightened to fulfill our dynamic purpose at this time in our life. Week after week, we will have wonderful guests that are making a mighty difference on the planet, individuals who have embodied and activated the potential of their own soul and are going forward to inspire, uplift, and transform the planet according to their unique pattern and their unique gifts. Wake up to the sound of transformation. You're hearing correctly. You're at the right station at the right time with the right people, particularly if you're keenly interested in becoming more and never less than your true self. We harbor no illusion that you can change the world while you remain the same. We harbor no illusion that you can reach out and make great and mighty changes in the external world of conditions without shifting your own perspective, your own perception, without shifting the landscape of your interiority, so that you're beginning to see yourself and see the world from an entirely new perspective. As that occurs, of course, transformation happens. The formation of your life based on previously held perceptions begins to disintegrate, and a new formation takes place. You go beyond your previous formation, and you end up changing and transforming into a greater version of who and what you really are. I welcome you to the Sound of Transformation. This is Michael Bernard Beckwith, your host. And when we come back from this sound of rhythm and joy, the sound of Agape, we're going to be with a very powerful teacher, a tremendous being that has the power of supreme influence, which is the title of her book. When we come back, we'll be with Niurka, and it'll be a profound and powerful moment with two friends having a dialogue about the possibilities of one's life. We'll be right back after this sound of Agape.
Take a breath. When we're talking about the topic of the God light, we're talking star power. We're talking power of the cosmos. And that we are here to beam this light of ours to such a degree that we're becoming aware of what's seeking to express itself through you. Feel your freedom right now. You are free to say in this moment, this God light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. in abundance, you lack nothing. Nothing. You have star power. You are the way the stars look back at themselves. You have star power. With that motivation underlying every action that you take, you are to boldly go where no woman or no man has ever gone before. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright. Let it be alright. Come on. Let it be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Come on. Let it be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Let it be alright. Every day. Let it be alright. Come on. Let it be alright. Come on. To be alright. Let it be alright. Let it be alright to be alright. Come on. Let it be alright. Come on. To be alright. Let it be alright.
That's Let It Be All Right to Be All Right. That's from the CD Transcendence. That's Michael Bernard Beckwith, yours truly, along with the music of Stephen Bray, the vocals of Brenda Lee Ager. And you can pick up the CD or you can pick up the book, which has 9 wisdom talks, including the CD called Transcendence Expanded. Let it be all right to be all right, which is a soulful reminder that we are not born with an original flaw or an original sin, that we're born from a field of infinite potential to reflect and to reveal the cosmos in a way that has never happened before. And so we embrace ourselves with that divine self-love and appreciation. We let it be all right for us to be all right as a starting point for our unfoldment and our participation in the evolution of our own soul. Let it be all right to be all right. That is a reflection of this genre called rhythm and joy. I have with me today Niurka. She's a transformational leader, a master teacher, and the founder and CEO of Niurka Incorporated, who inspires, educates, and empowers people to live purposefully and powerfully. Since establishing her company in 2000, she has taught tens of thousands of people to elevate the way they think, speak, and live. She specializes in creating and leading transformational courses that guide people to sculpt their most magnificent life, including Supreme Influence in Action, Masters of Supreme Influence, Goddess Garden, Neogenesis, The Science of Achieving Big Goals, and Turn Problems into Possibilities with Quantum Linguistics. She is a researcher. Her unique blend of linguistics, cognitive neuroscience, psychology, and quantum physics, unified with her in-depth understanding of the New Thought ancient wisdom, creates an integral learning environment for her students. A master trainer of neuro-linguistic programming and a master of hypnotherapy and timeline therapy, her company is a global academy offering certification in these disciplines. She's also a master practitioner of pranic healing. What does not Niurka do? She's the author of the new book, Supreme Influence. Change your life through the power of the language you use. It's available where books are sold through Random House. As a professional speaker, she unites business with essential wisdom of mind, body, spirit. Her work has been sought out by many of the finest corporations in the world, including Marriott, Performa, and Mercedes-Benz, who have produced record-breaking results by applying her teachings. She has shared the stage with Deepak Chopra, Marianne Williamson, Anthony Robbins, to name a few. She has spoken at our Agape Revelation Transformational Conference. She's been featured in films alongside His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar, and Sir Ken Robinson. And prior to launching her company, she was the #1 corporate trainer for Anthony Robbins for 5 years. She traveled the country, sharing the stage with Robbins, breaking performance records, and becoming a powerful, beneficial presence on the planet. Welcome, Niurka. How are you today?
Thank you. I am blessed and inspired to be with you, Michael.
I'm glad. This is our second time on this particular format, but we've been together on numerous occasions, and you always carry such grace and power and beauty and energy and enthusiasm. And I'm so glad to have you on the program with me today. And you know what? Congratulations on your new book. I remember we were talking about it before it was done. I had the privilege of writing the foreword to it. Now it's out and it's circulating, and people are having a powerful time going into it. But let me say something before we get into that. I want to remind our listeners where you've come from, your development, your personal unfoldment. I know you had a rebellious phase at 15 years of age, and you continued your journey after that. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, I did. I had definitely a phase where I embarked on a quest for freedom and for enlightenment and for truth, except back then I called it running away from home.
You were 15, right?
I was 15, and I was frustrated with my life, but I knew inside that I was destined for something more, even though I didn't have any mentors at the time. I didn't have any teachers at the time. I just had this inner knowing, and that's what sparked a search. I started reading, and I started studying, and I started looking for answers. And that was the beginning.
You actually ran away twice, from what I understand.
I did.
And one of the things that you say in your book that I loved, you said, I began making conscious choices, aiming far beyond the standards of my past. That was something that began to emerge during this, what we're calling rebellious, but it's actually breaking paradigms.
Exactly. It went from making reactive choices, where I was just operating from trying to move away from something I didn't want, from resisting things and just reacting, to moving into a place of contemplation. Mm-hmm. And starting to really consider, okay, what's the highest choice here? What's the result of this choice? And, moving out of associative thinking into contemplation and starting to ask better questions, that was the beginning of a complete transformation.
Is that the beginning of how life started to turn around for you, those kind of questions? Or was there some pivotal aha or pivotal experience? I mean, what actually turned you around to get you on this path the way you are today?
I think the moment where I turned around was I hit threshold. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's it, no more, something has got to change. And I had this inner sense that life could be this incredible expression of some gift that I had that I didn't know what it was. So it was the hitting threshold, and from threshold, making a conscious choice, saying something's going to change, and I'm going to figure that out. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it was a shift in focus, Michael. Rather than focusing on all the things that weren't happening and all the things that I didn't want and all the things that weren't going the way I wanted to, I started focusing on what can I do? What can I learn? How can I improve? And there was definitely a shift in my conversation with myself.
Now, one of the stories I've heard you share before that I think is very powerful for our listeners is when you were just 19 years old. You were a corporate trainer, and you had a very powerful experience facing a room full of executives who weren't initially sold on you and what you were teaching. You're only 19, but you changed that whole thing around. Tell us a little bit about that and what you pulled upon to really bring success out of that.
I know that story you're talking about. You're talking about that story on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Where I was called to do a presentation that was actually scheduled for one of the other trainers. It was scheduled for the top trainer. And he had an emergency, and he went to the airport, and all the other trainers were busy running meetings. So I actually was the last choice. But this is a phenomenal example about how when you put yourself in environments that call forth more and demand more from you than you ever believed you had, miracles happen. Mm-hmm. And it was a miracle in and of itself that I had created such transformation so rapidly to be in that place at 19. But what happened is I went down to that meeting after my manager called me and said, you know what, you're our last hope, kid. They used to call me kid back then. He said, are you ready? And I remember I took a deep breath, and I exhaled. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said, I'm ready. And I remember what I said to myself. I said that with faith the size of a mustard seed, I will move mountains. Mm-hmm. And I started trancing myself with that statement because I was scared and I was nervous. And I remember I owned this velvet jacket I bought at a thrift store that I would wear to my meetings to try to look professional.
Right.
And the whole way down there, I was like, faith the size of a mustard seed, I will move mountains. But the thing about the story is I wasn't just saying that. In my mind, I started seeing myself producing results. I started seeing myself connecting with the decision makers, connecting with the people, inspiring them to take action. And then I walked in and I poured my heart, mind, and soul into this presentation. And it was interesting because, imagine me walking into this big Wall Street office and the decision maker says to me, are you going to do this by yourself? And I joked with him. I said, I have a little green man in my briefcase who helps me out in case I get in trouble. And he wasn't amused. And he looked at me and he said, listen, kid, 20 minutes max. And I assured him everything happens for a reason and that I was going to do my absolute best presentation. He said 20 minutes max. And I went in there and I poured my heart, mind, and soul into a presentation that I created all by myself. And then at the end, I asked the opening question, who wants to take action? And nobody was taking action. But I remember I paused and I put my hand on my heart and I just connected with them. And a miracle happened in that moment. And the miracle was that the leader looked at me and he looked at his team and he looked at me and he pointed at me and he said, "Do you all see this kid?" I remember he said, "This kid's got balls to come in here and talk to you like this," in his Brooklyn accent. And he said, "And if this seminar can get this kid to do this, I'm going. And I think every single one of you needs to go."
Wow.
And a miracle happened. It was a huge success. And we walked back side by side to his office, and he wrote me a glowing recommendation letter. He got on the phone and introduced me to all the other top managers of his company, which is a very large brokerage firm on the East Coast. And the next day, he got me on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange and introduced me to all the major players. And at 19, that was the beginning of my career.
Wow, you just went for it with the faith of a grain of a mustard seed and the energy behind it. So at that young age, you were already seeing how supreme influence works in your life. So break down, what do you mean by supreme influence?
Supreme is the most empowered, authentic you. And influence, real influence, is inward fluency.
Inward fluency.
Inward fluency.
Oh, inward fluency.
Inward alignment.
Yes.
Yes. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, your beliefs, your sense of self, your vision, your goals are all in alignment. And you're living in alignment with your supreme self. That's what it is. Right. And when you're living a life that is congruent in that fashion, you have power, real power, inner power. The power that doesn't need anything out there because it knows you have all, you are one with all. So when you're living in supreme influence, this is a way of being. It's a way of communicating, and it's at your highest level of excellence, which is totally in alignment with what you refer to as fulfilling our soul's potential. That's what it is. It's the process of bringing that into our moment-to-moment words, into our moment-to-moment actions, into our daily practices.
Right.
And living from that frame. It's a frame of living and being.
I know we both teach around this, but you talk about speaking into existence, what we want to experience in our life, and the importance of speaking with authority. So when there's inner fluency, inward fluency, then we can speak into existence from that particular place. Riff on that for a moment, speaking into existence and what you mean by that.
You and I are totally in alignment with that because every time we open our mouth, we have infinite possibilities of what could come out. And the words that come out, they shape our world and they reveal what's happening within one's own consciousness. So when we could come into that place of clarity, into that place of inward fluency, and then we speak what it is that we intend to create, what it is that we intend to manifest. And for some people, it's like they have some fears. They're like, oh, my gosh, I can't speak that. What if it doesn't happen? What if it's not true? Then you could start asking yourself questions that call that in. But it's important to do it with that sense of authority.
Right.
In the original transliteration of the book of Genesis, they say that God said, let there be light, and there was light.
Right.
But that's not exactly what the original transliteration illuminates.
Mm-hmm.
First off, and you know this, it was Elohim. Powers that were in the creative process. And what the Elohim spoke was, when you look at the original text, was be light.
Yes.
So it was spoken in an imperative mood with the authority of the absolute, and that what came back, like a mirror image reflection, was light be. So when we just speak and you're like, this is so, and you call it in, this is done, but you're not attached.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, because the second you become attached and you lust after a result, you lose your power because it presupposes fear.
Right.
So it's about speaking into existence what it is that you intend to create. And if that is in alignment with the highest, then let it be done. But you realize that if it doesn't show up, it's going to show up even better than what you had imagined.
Right. It may not be according to your limited picture, but it will be according to that dynamic feeling of authority that you have released. If you're just tuning in to Wake Up the Sound of Transformation, I'm with Niurka, the transformational leader, master teacher, and the founder and CEO of Niurka Incorporated. Her latest book is Supreme Influence, Change Your Life with the Power of the Language You Use. And so as we're riffing here on speaking into existence and Elohim and be light, and then light reflects back to us as light be, it's important, of course, as you teach, to be aware of the language we use as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. The subtitle of the book is Change Your Life with the Power of the Language You Use. See, every time we open our mouth, whether we're asking a question or whether we're making a statement, like I mentioned earlier, we have infinite possibilities of what could come out. Well, every statement we make, every question we ask contains within its structure a presupposition. And presuppositions are embedded assumptions. They're embedded assumptions in language that actually trigger your brain. Scientists have a certain part of the brain they call the reticular activating system, or the RAS, which tells us what to notice. You know, it's like when you buy a car and then you start noticing everybody's driving around the same car you just bought.
Right.
Because your reticular activating system was triggered. Well, it's triggered all the time by your language. So if someone says, oh my gosh, how am I going to survive in this? They're triggering themselves to look for survival because there's that presupposition in their question or in their statement. So as we begin to consciously speak and consciously choose words that call forth the highest within us and the highest possibility, incredible things begin to happen and are drawn unto us. And this is not just like naive thinking where you stand in front of your garden and you're like, there's no weeds, there's no weeds, there's no weeds. I'm happy, I'm happy. That's not what I'm talking about.
This is not sweet, happy talk. This is real intentionality and focus and resolve and connecting within our inner authority. Absolutely.
Exactly. And it's about having an elevated inquiry with yourself.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I teach is before you go and talk to someone, before you go talk to your business partner, before you go talk to your lover or your beloved or your partner, whoever, or your children, especially if there's a challenge, talk to yourself first.
Absolutely. This is one of the things I teach even with my practitioners is that even when you're praying for someone, you're actually praying for yourself so that you can see clearly the truth about the being that you're so-called praying for, because you're basically dealing with perception anyway. And when you clean it up in your own awareness, then you create the field for a healing, a manifestation, or a mending of the soul. So absolutely, we have to talk to ourselves first. That's very, very important. Now, speak to us about a map of reality. What does that mean?
We live in this universe of infinite possibilities. You know, our physical neurology doesn't take in infinite possibilities. So what we're doing all day long is we're deleting, distorting, and generalizing reality until we wake up. And we're only picking up bits of information that harmonize with our own past beliefs, values, identity, sense of self, our own map of the world.
Right.
So what happens is people don't respond to reality. They respond to their map of reality until they wake up.
Absolutely. I always say something very similar, that people don't have an experience of reality. They have an experience of their thought about reality.
Exactly.
And this is exactly what you're saying. This is very, very important. And one of the things that I love in your book, you say that if an individual is ever stuck in a challenge, then they're oftentimes mistaking their map for reality.
Exactly. They're thinking that their map is reality. And that's where conflict comes in. That's where wars come in. Someone mistakes their map for reality. And then they talk about it, and they perpetuate it. They continue to speak that reality into existence. One of the things that I love that we've talked about several times and that you say, which I love that you say, is that we don't describe what we see what we describe.
Right. That's a law.
Yes.
It's a law based on perception. You know, you see what you're describing, your language, as you just said, the language you use, what you're speaking into existence. You ultimately begin to see what you've been describing all along. So if an individual is in a pity party, a woe is me party, why me party, why do they do it to me party, they, then that's what they experience chronically over and over again. And we want them to no longer RSVP to the pity parties. We want them to accept the RSVP to the party of possibility.
Yeah.
And pure joy.
The other thing, too, is when they're having that conversation, it's not just the questions that they're asking, it's the pictures in their mind. You know, we think with pictures, we think with, obviously, vibration and feelings, but they'll start seeing things that they don't want and make those big and bright and crisp and clear versus shifting the focus, okay, what am I inspired to create?
Absolutely. One of the things that I teach, and I know you teach it as well, is that nothing comes into our experience uninvited. We get what we want or what we don't want. And so as you've just said, people have these pictures of what they don't want, and they wonder why they are manifesting things they don't want. It's because they don't want it, and their energy is so much on what they don't want, and they have all the pictures and the emotional energy around what they don't want. The universal law only responds to what you're interested in. And if you're more interested in what you don't want, then the law acts on that and it begins to show up in your life anyway. So your whole thrust in terms of speaking something into existence, be mindful of the language that you're using, is extremely important for the success and the unfoldment of our soul. Now, There are so many maps, of course, and our individual maps include other people and our perception about them. But one of the things you say is that perception is projection, and I know we're in alignment with that. Break that down for us.
Perception is projection. So it's almost like life is this realm of infinite possibilities, this blank canvas of potential, all these possibilities, and your thoughts, your beliefs, your values, old programs from the past, again, until you transcend them and wake up, it's almost like they're slides in a projector.
Yes.
They get projected out. So what someone will perceive or experience is what's in alignment with what they're anticipating, what they're subconsciously projecting. And I'll give you an example is if someone has a tendency to be a little bit negative, even when something great happens, they could look around and go, well, not for long.
Right.
We'll see.
Right.
But say, wait a minute, something great just happened. That's because if you have negativity in the subconscious, you look out onto infinite possibilities, even onto something great, and you project negativity onto it, and then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy.
Absolutely. I was just speaking about that yesterday. I called it addiction restriction, that we are so addictive to the negative and the negative outcome, worst case scenarios, corporate media blasting us with the lowest common denominator of the human experience, the next great disease that's going to come our way, all this. And then people are actually becoming addictive to negative outcomes and lowest common denominators, and they become addicted to the toxic chemicals that flow through the body, that extra cortisol and all that drama. And they think because they're having drama and all these emotions that they're alive. But it's really an addiction that's restricting the flow of life from them. When we have a predilection towards bliss, we have a tendency towards bliss, which is the activation of our potential and embracing great possibilities. But the society is in an addictive trend around negativity, and that's what you've just described. And people think that's normal. And it is kind of normal, but it's not natural, really.
Exactly. That's why it's so important for us to consciously create environments, like consciously create conditions that call forth the highest possibility within us. So we're not just allowing those frequencies to come into our field.
And what's important about the spiritual sanghas and gatherings, the events that you do on a regular basis, the events that I do along with Agape, is we consciously create an environment where the frequency is up in the altitude of gratitude and thanksgiving and appreciation and articulating of possibility and activating inner potentiality, so people can become accustomed to living in that particular field and then develop the inner strength to carry that field into the world when they leave those particular temporary environments. So they actually carry the environment within themselves. And that's very important, to pull away from the world on a regular basis and to be around high-minded people where you can have this kind of conversation on a regular basis so it becomes subjective to us. And I know you find that a lot of miracles happen in the work that you do. When you take people away for 3 or 4 days, it's very, very empowering, because I hear the testimonies when they come home.
Thank you, without question. I mean, I'm a big fan of creating the cocoon of transformation. Something very powerful happens when we retreat away from this regular day-to-day. And you and I had a very powerful conversation a few years ago about creating these conditions and how that's really the key, that we have that choice. You know, you asked me about early on in my career, what was it that allowed me to create those results at 19, was I put myself in a environment. That was the first step, and it was scary, but I brought forth courage into that. I put myself in an environment that called that in, that required that evolution.
You know, we're getting ready to go on our break right now, but I just want to say I can remember for me, sometimes I would call it locking myself away. Sometimes just even in a room in my own house. And I would just not come out for 2 or 3 days other than to eat and use the facilities. But I'd have my music, certain books that I would read certain chapters out of. And I would just create this inner environment, particularly if I was trying to birth something and I needed to actually be the vibration of what I was trying to birth. And I would open myself up, and just when I felt it inside that it was done and that I was big enough for that birth, then I would come out. I'd call it this locking myself away for a while. And even in this moment, I'm feeling that shortly I'll be doing another one of those just to anchor myself in the reality that I want to live in. So we're going to be right back, and you can riff on that and these other questions I'll have for you in a moment. Right after this sound of Agape, you'll know the voice. It's Ricky Byers Beckwith singing Mainline. Listen to this.
Spirit on the main line. Pretty soon I'll be feeling fine. Tighten up my connection. spirit on the main line and a healing in my mind. The love of God surrounds me. Now I feel alright. Hey, well, I feel alright. Tell me, don't you feel alright? Hey, when spirit's on the main line, we're gonna feel alright. Hey, do you feel alright? Oh, I feel alright. Hey, I feel alright. Oh, I feel alright. Hey, do you feel alright now? Do you feel alright? Hey, and now I feel alright.
That's powerful. That's Ricky Byers Beckwith singing Mainline. When spirit's on the main line, I'm out of space and time. The love of God surrounds me. The answer is everywhere. Holy elevation. I'm at one with all creation. The voice so sweetly speaking. The voice is always there. Everybody say, Holy Spirit, take me up to higher ground. That's that inward fluency that Niurka is talking about. That is track number 3 from the CD and the book entitled Let My Soul Surrender, Grace Notes of a Journey, written by Ricky Byers Beckwith and Michael Bernard Beckwith. That's Ricky B.B. on the lead vocals and electric piano, Ricky Rouse on the lead and rhythm guitars. John Barnes did the orchestration on that, and Georgia Ann Muldrow was doing supporting vocals. Mortonette Stevens had additional vocals, Sekou Bunch on bass, Ndugu Chancellor on the drums, and Leon Mobley is on the percussion. That's called Mainline from Let My Soul Surrender. If you don't have it, you're a little late on that because it's been out for a moment, but people keep buying this book and CD over and over again because it's very, very powerful. We're back with our beloved Niurka, a powerful transformational leader whose latest book, Supreme Influence, Change Your Life with the Power of the Language You Use. Welcome back, my buddy.
Thank you. That was incredible.
Yeah, wasn't that great? That song was inspired. Ricky, in terms of the composition, she felt the spirit of James Brown. I'm sure you can hear James in there going, ow, I feel good.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. She felt that and turned around in a circle in the living room and began to do some composition around that particular song. Very powerful. So, as we were speaking...
Yes.
The book is beautiful, let me just say that. I love the two faces pointing toward each other and the wonderful color you have. The book has a lot of transformational knowledge in it, but it's also a beautiful-looking book, and that's always good.
By the way, do you see how the two faces looking at each other creates the Grail in between the faces?
Yeah, look at that. I see that.
And you'll see the light pouring down. It's subtle.
Yeah.
But the light is always pouring into us. We just open ourselves to receive.
Absolutely. Now, on page 109, we talked about this a little bit, but you said that the doors of opportunity remain outside of a person's awareness when they are in reactive consciousness, which is a tendency to think and speak through the lens of conditioning or programming without present moment awareness. I know we touched upon that a little bit, but I think it'd be helpful to go into that a little bit deeper.
Yes. The things that you're calling in, that someone wants to experience in their life, they're around you. Mm-hmm. They're in the field of all possibilities. You know, it's interesting. A few months ago, my office got a phone call from a gentleman that I'd never met. His name was Greg, out in the East Coast. And he called because he wanted to see if I would be the keynote speaker for his yearly convention. He runs a big company. And he said, Niurka changed my life. And my office managers asked him more questions. And apparently someone had gifted him one of my CDs, multimedia set that I have. And it sat on his desk for about 5 years as a paperweight.
Wow.
He never listened to it. It just sat there. And then one day he started commuting. And he was commuting like 3 or 4 days a week. And he said, well, I might as well listen to that, CDs that have been sitting on my desk. And there was one CD in there called Questions Are the Answer. And he started listening to this CD, and he started listening to it over and over again. And within about 90 days, it was like his whole world opened up. He started eating healthier. He lost weight. He started having better relationships with his team, with his family. His business skyrocketed. He increased his numbers by $50 million in a 90-day period.
$50 million in 90 days?
In 90 days off one CD, and he attributed it. He said, this is what did that. I didn't realize that I was asking myself all these disempowered questions about why isn't this happening? Why isn't that person doing this? And why is this person such an idiot? And all of these these different things. He said, I shifted my language, and my whole world has opened up. And the thing that's so fascinating about this, like you asked about the doors of opportunity, is that CD was there.
Yes.
The resources were there, right in front of your face, and you don't even see them until you say, okay, wait a minute, let me settle in. Let me get quiet here. What's really most important?
And as that happens, we move from reactive consciousness to more of our responsive nature. It's quite different.
Exactly, from reactive to creative. And the steps from reactive to creative, the mind works very much based on the law of association. Until we wake up, we have all these associations. And even when we wake up, we still have associative thinking because that's how your brain learns. That's how you make connections and distinctions. But it's like rising above this and beginning to contemplate. I call it going from association to contemplation, and Osho talks about this too, to concentration to meditation, where your life becomes a walking meditation.
Where you're not just meditating on the cushion, but when you get off the cushion, you're able to still maintain your contemplative mindset so that you're not caught up in the swirl of the world of effects and circumstances. You're still involved in that timeless, spaceless, dimensionless awareness that you have through contemplating that becomes your moment-by-moment meditation. And oftentimes people think that this stuff is only for gurus or things like that, but this stuff is for your basic being in order to live the life that they are ordained to live, to just pull out of the world, begin to ask a different kind of question, a question that's empowering, and move into a more contemplative space.
And everything is uplifted in your presence.
Right.
When that happens, it's like you walk into the room and you're the thermostat.
Right.
That's the temperature in any room. Even if it's dense, even if it's dark, it's like you walk in and you become the light unto the darkness, and you don't have to get rid of the darkness or fight it or make it go away. It's not all about this doing this. I mean, there's still action, but it's not coming from this place of I've got to do this. It's like you're being that.
I often say, are you being the thermometer or the thermostat?
Okay, I love that.
Yeah, you go into the room and some people are their thermometers. They're picking up the vibration of the room and they're settling in to the vibration of the room. And some people are thermostats. They go in and they change the vibration and the light and the heat in the room. They're not really the thermometer. They're the thermostat, which is what you're saying. And this portends a sense of inner authority that we're seeking to bring to people. One of the things that can't be spoken about too often that both of us really encourage is the vibration of gratitude on our path of conscious creation. So put those two together, gratitude and conscious creation.
Yes, I created a whole multimedia set on faith and gratitude because gratitude presupposes abundance. Gratitude is the vibration of appreciation. It's the acknowledgement that there is abundance in your life, and when you're in that place where you're looking for what's right and what's good, then your frequency is elevating, and that creates the vibration that attracts more of what you intend unto you. It's like sometimes somebody wants something, but they're in a place where they're not grateful for what they have. Like they want a bigger, better house, but they're so hate the house they live in.
Right.
And it's like you can't get to a place of conscious creation and receiving from a place of resisting and not wanting what you have because you're not a vibrational match.
Right.
I love what you said earlier because it's so brilliant. I even wrote it down here in my notes because it's what I do also. You said that you lock yourself in that room and you come into a place where you become the vibration of that which it is that you're calling in or you're feeling inspirited to create or whatever it is that's flowing through you. You become available to
Absolutely.
that.
So what we're telling individuals is this is not pie in the sky, namby-mamby, wishful thinking. This is real work. This is real labor of the soul. This is real intention setting. This is real changing the inner landscape. This is real spiritual movement. It's not just wishing that something happens.
That's a really important point that I think is sometimes overlooked. It's not just like you go into this room and you just become this vibration and everything comes unto you. There is specific actions that flow from that. The difference is that you're not in this mindset of I'm the one doing the actions and, oh my gosh, I did get this or I didn't. And now I'm attached to the things that I want and resisting the things that I don't. You're taking action, but you're taking action from this expanded context, from this expanded frame.
Our Buddhist brothers and sisters would call that right action. The right action is extending from who you are as being the right being, being in alignment with your original face, being in alignment with who you really are, so that the action is an extension of your connection, that inward fluency that you're talking about. So it's not just action. I often say that action without vision is chaos, and vision without action is a fantasy. So you have to have both.
I love that. That's the karma yoga.
Yes.
And I remember when I was 19 and I was traveling around in my initial studies, I traveled with the Bhagavad Gita for so many years. It was always with me, and it talks about karma yoga, which is very much in alignment with right action. And sometimes the best action is inaction or not taking hasty action.
And that's
pausing for a moment.
Absolutely. As someone said, to he or she who can perfectly practice inaction, to them all things are possible. Ernest Holmes quoted Plotinus in saying that to he or she who can perfectly practice inaction, which is a lot of the work that we're talking about here, where you're going in, you're cleaning up your inner landscape, you're becoming inwardly fluent, you're developing a contemplative, meditative mindset, you're developing a vision, fluency, right language, but it's a perfect inaction that makes basically all things possible with what? That faith with the grain of a mustard seed that you activated at 19 years old. If you're tuning in toward the end of this program, that voice you're hearing, it's Niurka. Her book, Supreme Influence, Change Your Life with the Power of the Language You Use. I had the privilege of writing the foreword to this book. It's a very powerful book. You may want to pick up the book, and you may want to check in on Niurka to see what she's doing and how to participate in some of her classes, and stay tuned to our website so you know when she's coming to Agape. But I want to ask you something else to riff on. On page 146 in your book, you outline a 10-step formula for conscious creation. And you talk about observe what is with courage and without attachment. You talk about choose what you intend to create, to check in, ensure that you're on purpose, to see, hear, and feel the end result accomplished in your mind's eye. Model success and create a milestone. I want you to talk about that. Amplify the picture, sounds, and feelings in your mind. Declare what you want with authority and know it is done. Act without lust for result. Be ready and alert, and allow life to unfold. These are 10 powerful steps. Riff on whatever your heart is feeling along those steps.
Along those steps. Well, the first is observe what is. You know, it's difficult for someone to consciously create what they want when they're resisting what is.
Right.
So just come into a place of observation. And then from there, it's like you choose, what am I inspired to create? What am I inspired to bring in? But you've got to get what I call specific in the abstract. You don't want to get too bogged down with, here's what I want. I want this particular business deal, or I want this particular man, or I want to have this particular house, or this particular achievement or result, because you're too chunked down, if you will, and that's where you miss opportunities. So you want to get specific in the abstract. What is the essence of that?
Yes.
What is the essential nature of it? And then how do you come into vibrational resonance with the essence of that, knowing that it's going to come to you as you envision it, or even better. So it's like you have this abstract vision, and this is an important part of really learning, and I teach this in my courses, really learning how to visualize. I mean, if someone's just sitting there and they want a particular relationship, and they're envisioning this person who's 6'2" with dark hair and green eyes, whose name is Ricardo or whatever, it's like they could have the most incredible person come into their life, but if it doesn't match that internal representation, they could delete that possibility.
I love reminding people that you basically can visualize, but you have to add the addendum, this or something better, in the highest and best interest of all concerned. So you're not limiting yourself, because actually the good is beyond your present paradigm anyway. And
I love that language.
Yeah,
adding those to the back of your intentions when you call it in is so powerful. It fits in alignment with the highest.
Right.
May this show up, or even better.
Right.
Instantly and properly.
Right.
I say.
With ease, grace.
With ease and grace.
Absolutely.
So it is. I love it. And then from there, you know, I talked about seeing it, hearing it, feeling it. So where you make it big and bright and crisp and clear, and it's panoramic, and it's happening all around you. And, you know, you can even sit with your feet flat on the ground where you're having this visualization, so you're connected to the earth. If you want to, you could close your eyes and kind of gaze towards the space between your eyebrows, which starts bringing you into this timeless space, and then start seeing this essence of this in the abstract. And then there's going to come a point where you'll feel your vibration peak in this. And then there is no separation between that actually being realized or versus it being imagined.
Right, well, the mind doesn't know the difference anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Einstein said that.
So if the mind doesn't know the difference, you can actually place yourself in the position of the answer and then allow that answer to become the activity of your awareness. And then ultimately the invisible becomes visible, the unmanifest becomes manifest, because it's all the same. We just have to be its instrument and its availability. And then you speak about modeling success and creating a milestone. What do you mean by creating a milestone?
Modeling success, I mean, if somebody wants to create something, let's say they want to build a business, there's other people out there that have created success in a similar arena. So I'm a big believer in creating connections and doing some research, doing some homework on what works. But then you've got to bring your own essence through to that. And you've got to have some type of starting point, because otherwise you don't ground this vision or this idea. So let's say that for someone, they're starting this new business that for them is an expression of their soul, their spirit, how they create value and beauty in the world through their unique gifts. A milestone may be, I'm going to launch my website. But they've got to have some action to it. And then modeling is, I'm going to look at other people in here who've got their own websites, and I'm going to see what resonates from this research. So I don't have to start from scratch.
Right. So the milestone are the bite-sized pieces that's in front of you that you're going to do on the way to the unfoldment of the larger goal. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Then you start having forward movement. And then as you go create that website, you're in that high vibration. You end up meeting somebody who's a phenomenal internet marketer. And then you meet somebody else who's all excited about helping you grow your business. And all these other things unfold. But you've got to have something where you say, here's the first step that I'm going to create. This or even better.
I like that, because you get Mo on your side, momentum. Inertia is transmuted into momentum. There's some kind of movement forward in the direction of where you want to go. And then you never know what happens when Mo takes over. Good starts happening beyond your imagination when Mo is on your side. Momentum based on these milestones that you're creating.
I love that. In the early years of my career, I used to say that it was momentum, because people would ask me, how do you get these results? How do you produce consistent record-breaking results? And I'd be like, it's all about building momentum.
Yes.
Once you have momentum, things just start coming in. You're not even thinking about it, and they're coming in. So the key thing is, you can't be getting ready to get ready to get ready to do something.
No. Mighty Mo won't be with you if you're just getting ready to get ready to get ready.
You can't prepare to prepare.
Right. You also talk about, there's a wonderful story about your friend Dave, and the question he asked you. He said, if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? What led up to that question? What happened after he posed that question? If everybody wants to know deeper, go to page 176 in the book. But break it down for us a second.
Yeah, that was at a time where I was totally jaded. And I was working with a company that went bankrupt and didn't pay me my last paycheck. And I remember feeling so jaded about what was happening. And he said to me, listen, if you could be anywhere in the world right now, where would you be? And what I said is, I would be hiking naked in the desert by myself. And I must have been, I think, 19. But that's what I wanted. I just wanted to be in stillness, be in silence, get some clarity, determine my direction. And the next thing he said to me made a profound impact, because he said, if that's where you wanted to be, then that's where you would be. And what I realized was the only limitation here is self-inflicted. There is no limitation on where I can be right now.
Right.
And that was something to accept, because sometimes we think, well, I just can't pack everything up and drive across the country and hike naked in the desert. That's ridiculous.
Right.
But that's what
we can choose.
Wanted in the moment.
But we can choose. Now, talk to us about navigating frames. What do you mean by that?
Ooh, I love navigating frames. There's a chapter in the book. One of the things that I teach is that we're viewing life through particular frames, mental frames or mind frames. You know, if somebody feels stuck in a problem, they are in a very narrow frame. In other words, they're looking at life through their own eyes, having their own experience. Just the act of stepping outside of themselves and viewing it from someone else's point of view gives them greater options. Or they could step outside of the problem and put it up on a movie screen, and they can see it from that perspective and get different points of view. So the thing is that we're always seeing life through particular frames. So if we can grow the frame, expand the context, live from a larger frame, this is where we start activating the qualities of compassion and love and expansive creativity and community, and then things that were problems in this narrow, limited frame of I, me, and you, and they dissolve in the presence of larger mind frames. And that's what happens is sometimes somebody gets stuck in a frame, and they can't see outside of it. And it's almost like it's got rigid boundaries, and they start talking about the frame or talking about the problem, and even though there's possibilities, they can't see their way out of it. So one of the things I teach in my courses is how to step outside of limiting frames.
Yes.
One way is you could ask a better question.
We both love that. I mean, you have it in your book. I have it in my books about asking empowering question, because many people ask disempowering questions. They will ask, what's wrong? Who's to blame? Why me? And of course, the universe will answer that question, but it'll answer it with the guck and the muck of the human condition. Whereas if you ask a much higher question, you get the inspiration, the wisdom, the guidance, the direction that comes only from lifting your awareness by asking that right question. So this is very, very powerful and very important for people to navigate frames, ask empowering questions on the way to manifesting the vision that's locked up within them.
Can I add one thing to that real quick?
I want you to.
How they move their body makes a difference.
Oh, yes. You can get into state. Absolutely.
If they're slouched down on their chair, looking down and going, oh, my gosh, how can I come up with a solution? And they're asking it in this kind of low energy, physiology.
Yes.
Then you've got to have your physiology match what you're invoking.
Yes.
So you got to sit up and put your shoulders back and inhale a full conscious breath, and you can look up. You access different quadrants of your brain when you look up versus when you look down. So by looking up, you start activating your vision. You start activating what is possible. So put your shoulders back, take a deep breath, look up, stand up straight, and then ask the question. And that makes all the difference.
That's very important. I know you do a lot of that work. I know even at Agape, I'll have people stand up sometimes when I'm speaking, stretch out their arms in the vibration of receiving, look up, just become available to the gratitude and the love. Because as you're indicating, your people are walking around slouching, shoulders bent over, face drawn up, frowning, using all those...
And then they want to be empowered.
Right. It's not going to happen. You have to have a vibrational match.
First.
Absolutely. Well, as we come down to the last couple of moments together, is there anything I did not ask you that you want to riff on for a second or two? That if you hung up and said, oh, my God, I wish I would have said that.
Well, I would just say to every person that's listening that there is something very powerful and special about you that only you can bring into the world. And that when you bring that and you give that creates a space to uplift your family, your community, and our whole entire experience of reality. And the other thing that I would say is that the area that has challenged you the most is likely where the greatest gift is.
Yes.
The greatest opportunity for your evolution.
Yes.
Whatever's been up for you, if you've had something up for you, instead of going, oh my gosh, I want to get rid of this, or I want to change this, get curious about it.
I like that.
Invite it in and go, come here.
Yes.
What can I learn from you?
Yes.
What's the gift here? What's the learning that once integrated allows this old energy to dissolve, create space for new possibility? And then from there, just realize that, I'll leave them with the opening line of my book, one person's awakening elevates the consciousness of the world. Well, actually, I said one person's awakening elevates the consciousness of the planet, and you are the one.
Absolutely.
So your awakening elevates the consciousness of your family, of your team, of your community, and ultimately of our world.
Well, I think that's a powerful way to go out. Tell the people your website and how they can contact you.
Absolutely. www.niurkainc.com. That's NIURKAINC.com. NiurkaInc.com. And I also respond to my Facebook wall, so you can come to the wall and connect with me there live. And I would look forward to seeing you at Agape or at one of our courses or events in the future. And I'm so grateful to have been here together with you, Michael.
Oh, it's always fantastic. She will be at Agape soon. She also has a Neogenesis 4-day retreat in September. She has a Supreme Influence in Action in November of this year. So go to her website, go to agapelive.com, and you'll notice when she's coming to Agape. And you can also go to agapelive.com and live stream our services every Wednesday evening. And 2 services are live stream on Sunday. You can check in when I'm doing my meditation retreats. Classes are occurring from our university. All of this is for the edification of your soul. You can go to michaelbernardbeckwith.com as well to see where I'm speaking and see what's up with my blogs and things of that particular nature. This is Michael Bernard Beckwith with our friend Niurka saying, live an empowered life. It is a mandate that you do so because the universal presence has given you everything. Now share it, circulate it, activate it, and express it. Have a bright and shiny day. Peace and blessings to you.